Welcome back to the Reid Method Insider Podcast. This is episode 69, and we are racking up the episodes lately here, fast and furious on the show. So I want to thank everybody for joining. And you know what? I want to give a big shout out right off the bat to some countries, especially India today. We released an episode over there with our guest from a few episodes ago. Her name is Janaki. And Janaki S, and you guys should probably check her out. She gave us some really nice tips on LinkedIn, and it's just has gone crazy literally in the last 12 hours on LinkedIn, where so many people have been listening to the episode and commenting. So I want to thank her for coming on the show to talk about, giving us tips on LinkedIn and how to maximize and how to network, and how to brand ourselves on LinkedIn, because that's all vital stuff. That's very important stuff that we're all trying to do, especially for those of you who've been working from home and looking for new opportunities. It's just very vital these days. So I want to just give one quick shout out to, and this is important to me because, we're a relatively small podcast, but these countries that the top 10 countries, obviously the United States, then Canada, then the United Kingdom. And today we have India in the fourth position, Jamaica, where I'm from, and the Netherlands, Japan, Pakistan, Australia, and Trinidad and Tobago. And those countries have been with me, and there's 50 others, but those are the top 10 recently. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the supporters and listeners from those countries. So I see you and I appreciate you very much. Keep listening, keep sending in your comments. So here we go. Now, on this episode, we are going to talk about how to lead sales teams in times of economic crisis. And we are certainly in that right now. And our returning guest is the founder and CEO of Badger Maps, the #1 route planner for field sales reps. After receiving his MBA from Stanford, he joined Google, where he became Google Enterprise top sales executive globally, folks, in 2019. In 2012, he founded Badger Maps, and he's helped field salespeople to be more successful with multi-stop route planning systems. He also hosts Outside Sales Talk, and this is an amazing podcast you should check out. I've been on his show, and it's grown leaps and bounds. And on this show, he interviews industry experts and their top and to get their top sales tips to share with you. He's also the president of the newly founded Sales Hall of Fame. I saw the evolution of this, and I want to welcome back to the show, Mr. Steven Benson.
Well, thanks for having me on here today, Everold. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, this is the last time you were on a couple of years ago, and we've both been there and seen simultaneously each other's evolution over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a fantastic couple of years. I mean, podcasting has become so much more popular over the last few years, as things have developed here. It really has.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was going through this again, and I'm like, tell us about the time at Google and how you became Google's global sales rep. Like, how did that happen?
I mean, I like to say that was right place, right time more than anything else. I started there in 2008, and then in 2009, I got a lot of big sales deals done. I was selling Google software at that point. The enterprise software, so like Google Apps and Google Maps, and they have some security software, and I really hit the ground running there and got some nice deals done, and turned out to be a really great year.
Amazing. So yeah, I've always it's always interesting to know what led one to the next level, and what caused the transition. How you became identified as this, because we see Google, everybody goes on Google every 5 seconds of their life. And, here we are talking to one of the guys back in the day that sold all the stuff for Google and, globally. So this is a big deal. And I'm very privileged to have you back on the show. So we're going to dive into this episode as we talk about how to lead sales teams in times of economic crisis. And we know we can identify several companies around us, directly, indirectly, that are going through some type of crisis right now. And it's certainly great to have your insight, a leader of a company in Silicon Valley, and who has been all over the world and have seen, and are definitely in tune with globally with how sales teams inside and out are able to navigate through these times. So, in your one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the new challenges a sales manager needs to overcome in bad economy that they might not have been thinking about before?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, the new challenges that one of the first key new challenges that come to mind is that in a down economy, you're dealing with desperate competitors who may be willing to do absolutely desperate things. A ton of companies are really hurting and are willing to do things that they wouldn't necessarily have done before.
Yeah.
Things like liquidating their inventory just to make ends meet, right? So having a fire sale, basically giving away free stuff to win business, to steal your customers away from you, right? Free consulting, free, buy one get one free, and anything they can get their hands on to sweeten a deal. Deep discounting that they wouldn't have done before because they just need to get money coming in the door so they can keep the lights on. And that can, even if your business isn't as impacted, if your competitors are impacted like this, it can really affect you. In addition, I would say, so that's kind of like a new challenge that a sales manager is going to be facing from competitors. But there's also challenges and things that you're going to need to overcome coming from your prospects and your customers.
Yeah.
There's going to be resistance to making purchases and spending money that just wasn't there before. They might not want to engage. They might not want to, meet with you. They might not want to meet with you in person. And they have a great excuse not to.
Yeah.
If there was someone that didn't want to meet with you before, or really didn't see the value in your product, or wasn't sure, now they have a great excuse to do nothing, right? And just like if a sales manager or a sales rep ever wanted an excuse not to succeed in the world, now they have a great excuse. But even the best excuses don't pay your mortgage. So you can quote me on that one.
Yeah, I think, I'll second that. So on the other hand, negotiating training, how can a sales manager react in a bad economy to their margins compressing,
Yeah, well, there's just resistance to spending money right now. There's compressing money. There can be spending freezes coming from the top. There can be aggressive procurement officers who are leveraging the down economy for discounts and to get better terms in general and jam your margins. And a procurement officer, when do they stop? When does anyone stop wringing a wet rag of water, right? You stop when it stops giving water. And now every procurement officer in the world has a great excuse to just twist your arm as a salesperson to get a few more concessions, to get the price lower. And this is their job, right? I mean, you can't hate them for it. It's just, you have to be prepared for this. But as your margins are compressing, you need to defend your margins in these times, right? I mean, it's one of the jobs of a sales manager to arm their sales team with the skills and abilities to maintain the margins. One strategy you can think about employing, if your reps have historically been comped on revenue, if you're under a lot of margin pressure, you can switch the comp plan and make it comp the reps on profit margin, and that can really get their focus back on, get their focus on maintaining the margins and not just bringing revenue in the door, but bringing profitable business in the door. So, if your profit margins are 30% and your rep gives a 15% discount, you actually need 2 deals like that to be worth the deal that was at full price. And people don't, it's easy to focus on the math, of, oh, we brought in this much revenue, but if you have a lot of costs baked into that revenue, then it's really more important to focus on the profit. So you can align that rep's comp plan with the revenue, and then the 15% discount, if you're aligned with revenue on the comp plan, the 15% discount only costs them 15% of their commission. But if the comp plan is aligned with profit, that 15% discount just costs them half their commission. So they'll do a much better job defending margins if you align that comp plan with the profit line instead of with the revenue line. And in general, you always want to design comp plans to be aligned with what your business needs. And that doesn't mean change your reps' pay or on target earnings. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you can change the plan and reward the reps that are generating the most profit.
That's so, that's so key. And the reason why we're having this discussion, and I love when we talk, is we're not just talking about the surface level stuff where, I'm in the automotive space most of my career, where everything is really surface level. No one really dives deep into the philosophy, into what makes individuals tick, beyond
and what a great example of where a place to comp your reps on profit, not revenue, right?
Not right. Yes.
You can sell a car and make $100 even though it's a $20,000 car if you do it wrong.
Yeah,
right?
and that does happen. Okay, that does happen. So yeah, so where is the motivation, right? Because at the end of the day, that sales rep, and this is true today, whether you're selling Kias, Toyotas, Hondas, and certain cars, because the profit margin, is the available profit margin is relatively low on those cars, maybe 6%, 7%, and the minimum commission, and I'm speaking from knowledge here and experience, is $150 if it's a minimum commission. Now you could make 3 or 4, but that on the lower price cars. But when you have a sales rep saying, I'm going into work today, and you're going to bust your butt the same 3 hours potentially to sell one car, and you've seen the client 3-4 times, and at the end of the day you make $150, they're not happy.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So, and there's no motivation in that. So I like, what you're talking about here, is aligning the compensation with profit margins. So, because I think it changes the mentality of the sales rep. And this is ultimately what we're trying to do, is to bring them more into the game, as opposed to being, okay, well, just go sell the cars, and yeah, it's $20,000 or $30,000, and you're just lucky you get a deal rather than make any money. No, that's pretty good. So what do you think sales leaders need to change in their behavior in the time of crisis to keep revenue flowing and to keep focus?
Well, an economic crisis is the hardest time to be a sales leader, right? The whole company depends on revenue. And so you really need to step up as a sales leader during a time of economic crisis. So in terms of what behavior can you change, what can you do different, you can be more responsive. You can give your reps great support. They're scared, they're worried about their jobs, they're, their base salary being guaranteed by the PPP for a few months doesn't help with their commission check evaporating. They weren't paying their mortgage with their base, and it's a stressful time, and as they see their bonuses evaporate as customers aren't buying. You got to guide your reps, you've got to coach your reps in these times. It's really easy as a leader to go silent and just, especially in a working from home world, hide behind your computer. But you've got to be in front of your reps, asking questions, finding out what they need to be successful. You have to understand what's going on the ground level, so that you can steer the ship well. And you got to be honest in your assessment of what's challenging what challenges you're facing as an organization. You got to ask the hard questions. You got to come up with an action plan, and you've got to stay positive, right?
Well, yeah, and I was just going to ask you a question about that, about tone and attitude, because I see this firsthand and all the time, where you're asking, especially in this time of crisis, employees are going to work every day because they need to. They can't pay their bills with the government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So they go back to work. They're coming in early, they're staying late in an relatively unsafe environment due to COVID and
Mm-hmm.
everything else. And in some respects, they're dealing with managers that can't handle the pressure, frankly. They are, getting overwhelmed or getting worked up, and they're not leading, frankly. They're not actually leading their sales team. So everybody's getting frustrated in the process, and which hampers productivity and profitability, and everything else. So what do you say to leadership about attitude, about tone, about communication in a time of crisis?
Well, I think that as a leader, you have to be able to communicate honestly in these times. You have to be flexible, and you have to adjust your style, and you have to be honest also with yourself. Not there's not necessarily an easy way out for a lot of businesses, and some businesses have to make real big changes. They have to be able to pivot. They have to understand, this strategy that we're using isn't the right one going forward because the world has changed, and so we have to shift into this one. And it's not the times that are most frustrating is when something's not your fault, but it's just it's the way it is. It's an external force. But for example, you need to change your focus as a manager from forward-looking KPIs, or you need to look at forward-looking KPIs, not just lagging KPIs in a time like this. Like you can't just look at current revenue. You have to look at what's going to happen and what's going to happen in the future. It's easy to just look at sales right now and revenue coming in the door because cash is king, right? You got to be able to pay people and pay your expenses and keep the lights on. But as you evaluate your reps, you need to remember to keep an eye on who's building pipe, who's generating revenue, or who's doing the things today that's going to generate revenue in the future as the economy bounces back. So, in general, if you're a sales manager, you need to look to realign your KPIs and metrics into these areas that your team is struggling. And so if you're having pipeline problems and you're just not bringing a new pipe, you need to count your lead gen numbers and focus on that. You need to count how many people are getting meetings scheduled, how many new leads are getting scheduled. If your challenges are more middle funnel, you need to focus in on who's making how many presentations to the right decision makers. If you're not closing business, which a lot of people aren't right now, they're teeing up deals and doing a good job at generating interest and going through the sales funnel, walking through the middle of the pipeline well, but then customers aren't buying, and that might be because they don't have any money to spend, right? But it's a good time to look to train on how to overcome those objections, how to show the near-term value of the solution that you're giving. Work on negotiation skills, value selling. If you're struggling with margins, track what your discounts are on every single deal and figure out why the discount was so deep, and protect your margins with value selling skills, with negotiation training skills. But all these metrics, these are all secondary metrics to revenue. If you focus too much on counting anything other than revenue dollars or profit, you can get skewy results, right? Like, as a sales manager, you can't totally change how you're rating the team. And ultimately it's got to be profit and revenue. I don't remember. I don't recommend putting too much weight in terms of the comp plan, or which rep is considered to be doing the best on anything except for the types of metrics like closing deals and profit. It can't be on how many proposals they're giving, because then you're just going to get a lot of proposals or presentations or whatever that aren't necessarily going to turn into revenue, which down the line isn't going to help you. So those are the KPIs.
So other than the KPIs, which
mm-hmm.
are obviously important because everybody needs to know exactly what's going on in their companies right now, in any company, let alone any sales business, it's all about the numbers right now, and you need to know these numbers inside and out. But how do you manage the people aspect of it, where the team's coming in stressed? Okay, they have their own individual issues to deal with at home. We don't know exactly,
Mm-hmm.
in your company, you've got 75 people, let's say, and they all have personal lives and they all have personal circumstances. And that's a part of leadership too, because is it a one size fits all, paint everybody with the same brush type mentality in terms of leadership? Or are you suggesting everybody, dealing with everybody at scale on a different individual level? Because I think from my perspective, and I did a whole presentation on this recently, is I think to get the best out of your people going forward, to manage those numbers and to manage those KPIs and to implement these new systems and new strategies, I think you need to get the people's mind into the right place. That number one, they have support from management. Number two, the company's going to back them. Number three, they need training wherever that's possible. But is there something that you say to your staff to give them a little bit of comfort so that they can see, it will be okay?
Yeah, well, we hear a ton about empathy for our customers right now. A lot of people are talking about that. I think as a leader of an organization, or a sales leader, or a marketing leader, or really anything, you need to empathize with your employees, and you need to know that everyone kind of has a different situation. Maybe John can handle not making his commission for a few months, but Jimmy can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to recognize people are coming from different situations, and some people are check to check, and some people have a spouse that has a big job and they need the money a lot less. Their rent's covered easy no matter what. But knowing, and I think it's really hard to do that at scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have had conversations at scale in our company where I talk to everyone at the same time, and we've also had a lot of conversations one-on-one where me or another leader in the team is interacting with individual employees, and you have to, it has to be a one-on-one basis, and you have to check in with how people are doing. You have to empathize with them. You have to understand where they're coming from. At the beginning of calls today, I think it is important to check in with people, because we've got so much going on in the world, not just economically, but culturally, and it's a time where different people are affected in different ways.
Yeah, that's good. I think this is just a valid point, because I think too many times, too many leaders overlook the people aspect or the human aspect of it. And especially in a time of crisis, everybody's dealing with their own individual crisis, but they still, put on their pants and come to work every day and show up. And, you don't need to leave stress in one place at home to go to work. Because some people, what I have learned, and I've known this, but I've seen it, is some people sometimes leave their home where it's a lot of stress to come to work because it's almost less stress there sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm hearing that from a lot of employees. They're like, this is my favorite time of the day.
Well, yeah.
Because a lot of work hasn't changed that much for most of my employees, right? Like,
yeah.
If they were selling our software solution before this crisis, they still are. If they're marketing it, they're still marketing. If they're on the engineering team, they're still engineering, and most of them are like in a bedroom somewhere, pretending it's their office. But, but in the end, like, their job has not materially changed, where their social life is upside down, and, they're fighting with their spouse because they've been locked up for the last 4 months together, et cetera.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the areas that reps commonly need coaching in a down economy?
Coaching, yeah. I mean, I think this depends on the team and the industry, but I guarantee that everyone should be reevaluating and rethinking about their coaching strategies. Um, One specific area that I think everyone will need to be coached on a bit and needs to rethink is building pipeline. We often need to relearn to prospect and rethink who we're selling to in a bad economy, because the best buyer for our product or service or whatever may have shifted a little bit, or even maybe shifted not just a little bit, but maybe is a totally different person, or ideal customer profile, ICP, that we're trying to sell to today. So we need to sharpen our weapons and get out and hunt and build some pipeline. In good times, the food might have been easy to come by in a lot of these industries, and
Yeah.
a lot of teams were just farming and coasting along. But now the locusts have descended and eaten all the crops, and we've got to pull out those bows and arrows and get out into the woods and shoot some stuff. So
Start hunting.
Yeah, get out there and hunt. And so yeah, sales leaders, they have to help their teams get back to the basics, find new leads, build pipeline. And the good news is that in this economy, we're seeing people pick up the phones and engaging with people in a way I don't think we've seen in decades, right?
Yeah.
They have the time to evaluate new vendors. They're motivated to find new vendors who can help them solve their burning problems that they have right now. So, coaching and up leveling your team skills is always important, but I think it's especially important in tough times, and really any time of change or upheaval. And in this economy, while we're seeing, we're in an adjustment phase, I would say. And sales managers, I think, should be spending 50% of their time coaching their team through this transition. And this could be pre-call strategizing, post-call debriefing. It could be jumping on calls with them. It could be, specifically coaching them through each individual opportunity. Anything that makes their reps on their team better and sharpens the sword would count towards that rule of thumb. 50% of their time needs to be spent coaching them.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of companies fall way short, is in coaching, because especially pre-COVID, where things are going along, and because they're selling and they're meeting their perceived targets, they think it's okay. And one of the on this major panel that I just hosted, we discussed culture in companies, where how can a company truly realize their capabilities, or individuals realize their true capabilities, with no training? Because things are going okay in the economy and the company's doing good. I've always stressed this. Can you imagine if there was actual systematic training? You're talking about 50% training, but there are companies that don't even get 5% of their time training all year. And I know these companies.
And I'm not saying the rep should be spending 50% of their time training. I'm saying, as a sales manager,
yeah,
you should be spending 50% of your time coaching and training. And coaching and training means a whole bunch of things. Yeah. But that's where your focus needs to be right now. I mean, you've got to manage the team through the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can a sales leader then take advantage of prospects actually picking up the phone? And we were talking about that a bit, and being open to new ideas, because the down economy forces them to be open to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to think about changing the structure of the sales team. Many sales teams are broken up into your hunters, your AEs, and then your farmers, sometimes called customer success associates, CSAs, and your lead generators. Your sales development reps, your SDRs. So a lot of companies are breaking up their teams more and more into these different roles and gain some real efficiencies. The guy that kind of wrote the book on this, that, what was that book called? Predictable Revenue. Aaron Ross. I had him on my podcast, I don't know, a year ago or something, where he summarized this stuff. But the concept of restructuring the sales team for the modern world into individual roles. I think that's one way you can take advantage of this, is by focusing the SDR on generating the leads, passing the deal to an AE to close, and then passing that to a CSA to manage the ongoing relationship. And so maybe you had hunters and farmers before, but now you can think of retooling these teams. So you maybe now some of the farmers have extra time on their hands because you've lost some of the customers that you had under management. So your current customers' business is down, and your existing customers have fewer needs, and they're taking up less time of your customer success team. So you can move those farmers back into hunting roles. And they may be a little hesitant to do that because they're like, oh, I'm not a salesperson. I'm an account manager. But the skill sets are similar enough that you can retool in this hard time. And obviously their comp plans have to change to be more of a hunter plan, more of a eat what you kill type plan. But I think a lot of them will be they'll be up for that given the economic situation that we're faced. A survey right before coronavirus, I remember, said that 1/3 of all salespeople never prospect. And I think this is a time where we have to dig deeper and refocus. It's not a time for excuse making, rationalization, which is, right now, everybody's got an excuse, right?
Yeah.
There's never been a better excuse not to succeed right now. But if you were looking for a great excuse to quit, you've got your great excuse right now. No one's ever going to think the worst of you, because it's a disastrous time. It's really catastrophic. But if you still have the fire and you want to win, I think you've got to dig deeper and take advantage of these people out there are willing to engage right now. So you shift resources into outbound sales, into engaging with more prospects. You get your message in front of your ideal buyer, and you build your pipeline, close some business.
So as much as one may not have an excuse to, or has an excuse to quit, potentially, or could say, well, I'm not doing so well because of COVID. I'm not doing, things are bad because of the economy. Things are bad because of all these cultural issues going on. I mean, yes, the world is, a pretty turbulent place right now, with probably two or three three. You got the economic issues, you got COVID causing more in-depth economic issues. You've got all these cultural issues all over the place. But with that, there is still opportunity to be had, right? So within this time, as easy as one could potentially say, I have a reason to quit, what's your opinion on also having a reason to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's, everyone's thinking, it's a great time for with an excuse for quitting and blaming other things. And it's a turbulent time. It's wild times, and it's distracting times, right? I think it's buyer. Not only are we as on the sales side distracted, but buyers are also distracted, right? It's hard to focus on work when, there's all these other things going on in the world that are so important. And, I think, where do you find the motivation for that? I think when you step back, I think, and look at this period in your life, you're not going to want your career to have gone sideways because you weren't able to maintain focus, right? It's a distracting world right now, and it's a difficult one, but I think it's one that people can maintain focus, and that's really important if they do that. And that's I think when you step back, that's the way to maintain motivation is, focus on your goals, think about where you want to be 3 years from now, look at the long term, and pound it out.
Yeah. So to follow up on the previous question about forcing change or being open to change, when you do that, when you go to build a pipeline, how is that different in a bad economy versus a good one?
Yeah, well, I mean, the messaging needs to change, right? So how do you change your go to market, the what your prospect hears about your company and your service or your product needs to be different. So you have to change your messaging from "will help you do better" to "we will help you do more with less." And it's really important in times when money is tight to show your prospects how much more you'll help them do with less. Quantify it in terms of dollars. This is how much we will help you do more with less. Could be less money, could be less manpower, could be less resources. um, I'll use me as an example, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when times were good, my sales team at Badger Maps would go out and say to our, when they were going to our customers, and we've changed messaging on the website, right? I mean, but the messaging that the sales team was taking out was, we will help your sales team sell 20% more when they're in the field. So your field sales team is going to sell more, right? So that's the old messaging, is sell more. And now my
Mm-hmm.
messaging is, with Badger Maps, your outside sales team can generate the same revenue, even though your team might be 20% smaller, right? More
Wow.
with less. And there's a huge difference psychologically and with people's headspaces, where you can connect with them, even though you're I'm basically saying the same thing and I'm doing the same thing, but one of these messages resonates
The messaging
way
is
more
key.
with people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's such a good point. Help you to do more with less. Yeah. That's amazing, because that's saying to your prospective client, I'm offering you more value. I'm offering you more convenience, or I'm solving your problem, uh, without having to spend as much. Um, your results will be similar, so you might not be losing as much.
Mm-hmm.
And who doesn't want to have, find a way to keep that revenue coming, or to keep, like you say, keep the lights on and so on, but without having to put more people on the floor, or without having to cut staff, or without having to, lay off a bunch of people. um
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty big, I like that. So
So many people right now, their message is still in this time, hey, we're going to help you do better. We're going to help you improve XYZ. And people are like, I'm bleeding over here. I mean, you've got to help me keep the wheels on this bus, even though we have less gas and less oil, you know?
this is such a big deal right now, because what's resonating with me right now is, um I created the Lease Performance Blueprint course, and it's exactly this: to do more with less. And in the automotive space, and I have to do this because you brought it up,
Mm-hmm.
is, in the automotive space, every single dealer is worried about getting clients through getting traffic through the door. That's their main focus. How do we get more traffic through the door? How do we
Yeah.
get more leads? How do we
Top
get
of funnel.
Yeah, how do we get more calls? And I'm like, hang on a second. You actually have half the business that you'll do this year is already in your database.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so the system I've created focuses on maintaining a larger percentage of the clients you have in your database,
Mm-hmm.
while building on the base, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to being dependent and heavily focused on the flow of traffic through the door.
Well, and this is exactly what we were talking about earlier with the breaking up your hunters and your farmers. So in the software industry, where I think this trend started, with Aaron Ross back in the day, um, he figured out, I shouldn't have my salespeople generating new leads. I should have a separate type of salesperson generate the leads and pass them to that salesperson. And then I shouldn't have my salesperson dealing with existing customers. I should pass once someone is closed, I should pass that person to this customer success person whose whole job is to keep customers happy and successful.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that in automotive, it's still, that's one guy doing all three of those things. Whereas in software, that's really three different people, right? Like I have three teams that are all basically sales, but they've split up the sales role into three pieces. And because they're focusing on that individual piece, they get a lot better at it. They become, the guys that are only generating leads become awesome at generating leads, and they're not distracted by existing customers when they're generating their leads. And the people who are focused on the existing customers get really good at that. And, to your point, if automotive companies did that, if they had someone whose job it was to focus on the existing customers, they'd probably get a lot more return business. If they've had someone full-time just
Yeah.
focused on their success, their happiness with the vehicle. Whereas instead, I think a lot of times they have like a service department that overcharges them.
Exactly. And the focus is just really lopsided. And I've proven this year after year because, the question I get all the time is, hang on a second, how do you get to work at a dealership and travel and coach and have podcasts and lecture and speak all over the place? And the answer is my systems. I've developed systems that I use that allows me to be, most years except for last year, the top rep in the company. Largely because I was traveling too much. I can't do that now. Don't have that excuse this year.
Yep.
Right. But aside from that, it's being able to manage a system. So I've developed the system, and I've been trying to say, look, the majority of your business, and every dealership for the most part is like this. And a lot of retail sales companies are like this, where the primary focus is new people through the door. Let's worry about not, letting the competition get them, because so we got to spend a lot of advertising. We got to make a lot of outbound calls. We got to, obviously you have to follow up. And that's where, as you know, in sales, a lot of the business is lost right there at the follow-up stage. And, like you're saying, a third of salespeople never prospect. So more like 80% don't even follow up. So, or 2/3 at least, follow up very little. So you've got that problem right there that you can nip that in the bud a little bit, because like you're saying, if you have these different departments focused on specific things like lead generation or e-leads that are coming in, most dealerships get a ton of e-leads today because as you know, everybody's shopping at home, right? But oftentimes the leads are not answered in a timely manner.
Yeah.
The leads are not focused on because you're trying to focus on the lead, but in walks a client into the showroom. And then they're saying you got to look after the client because he's standing there.
And that's exactly why your AE, your sales rep, can't be the person getting back to the leads. So that's I would call that an inbound SDR. So, you've got these leads coming in. Someone should be getting back to those in 5 minutes. Try signing up for Badger Maps. Putting your name and email address. Watch what happens. Or open a ticket with us. If you're like, hey, I don't understand how to upload my data and get all my customers into Badger so I can see them. Like, watch how fast they get back to you. The average time is 5 minutes. And I think it's so important to because people want stuff and they want it now. They don't want it in 2 days. And if it's an AE, if it was one of the salespeople that were getting back, and in your world, the showroom guy, that person's in a 3-hour conversation right now, later in the sales funnel, talking to a deal that he's trying to close. He's not checking his emails right now and going through the e-leads and making those phone calls, right? It's too, so you got to split that up. I think it's just inefficient not to split that up. Have one of the lower level people. It's an introductory sales job, right? It's lower level. It costs less, but you can have them get right back to people. You can have them answer all the questions, tee them up to get them in the door and become a real lead. And if you don't, maybe they end up buying a used car, buying a Mercedes, not a Lexus, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is so vital because and as you're talking, I'm like, this is exactly what I see every day, and like this is such BS that we actually, like a lot of owners, a lot of leaders, a lot of managers don't actually see this, that you could be way more successful within a sales organization, not just automobile dealerships, if you segment the responsibility, because electronic leads via email, calls, chats, text, they're coming in fast and furious. I mean, look at the amount of online shopping that's going on in the last 3-4 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same thing they're doing. They're buying high ticket items, or they're ordering a Big Mac online.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, or a coffee, whether it's $5 or whether it's $50,000, and they're not being looked after efficiently. So that's a good point. I certainly that certainly reaffirms what I've been thinking.
Another thing that jumps out at me while I think about your business, I think referrals are probably really important.
Yeah.
There's this woman who's just brilliant, Joanne Black. She lives out here in San Francisco, and she has written 3 books on all the secrets to referrals, and she's just done this tremendous amount of research, and like there's so many great techniques to get people to tell you turn on their brain for a second and tell you, oh, I actually do know 3 people who are kind of in the market for a car right now, right? Like it, but the ability to do that and get people to actually share their referrals with you, I think that, and maybe you already have a system for this, but that in your existing customer and lead database, to be able to go through them and pour through them and get introductions from referrals would be so powerful. Joanne she was on my podcast like you were, I don't even know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, but it's like a 40-minute summary of how to do referrals if you want to get, if the 3 books is too much.
No, if they're on, well, I'll definitely listen to that episode, and I wrote down her name. So it's Joanne Black, and I also, Aaron Ross is the other gentleman.
Yeah, Aaron Ross is the one that talks about, and when he was on my podcast, I'm not even sure how much he talked about this, but he has 2 books, both of which are great. One he wrote with Jason Lemkin. It's called Impossible to Inevitable. That's really focused on software. But the other one, Predictable Revenue, is the one that kind of outlined for the first time how to break up a sales team into their specialized role and how they went about this at the company that he was leading that effort.
Yeah.
So that book is worth reading. His podcast is a great way to get a summary of it, and I would definitely listen to. So his name's Aaron Ross, and then Joanne Black.
Yeah, I definitely wrote those down. I'm gonna see if they are on Audible or audiobooks, so I can listen to them.
I think my podcasts are on Audible. They're on like all the major platforms, Spotify and iTunes and everything.
Yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out, and so should everyone listening, for sure, especially about predictable revenue and how to manage those teams or segment your sales team so that they can be specialized. And if they're specialized in one role, they actually are more productive because they get better at it, and then they basically just transition the responsibility to the next person through the process. That's amazing. So this episode's going we're almost an hour, and but it's been great. I mean, this stuff is deep, and I appreciate your time as we are on episode 69 of the Reid Method Insider Podcast with Stephen Benson, and we were talking about how to lead sales teams in times of economic crisis. And this stuff has just been very, very in depth, and I appreciate your deep knowledge of sales. And this is why you're you're a top guy for Google in the world, for crying out loud. So, so in terms of cost reduction, businesses are under pressure right now and to reduce cost. And we touched on this a little bit. So in fact, you'll have, whether it be owners and boards or CEOs, maybe looking at high expenses and are saying to their marketing teams and their managers, you need to reduce costs. So if you're a VP yourself of sales and you're being told to reduce costs right now, how would you approach that?
Wow, very timely question. Yeah, I mean, so if I'm told to reduce costs and I'm the VP of sales, first I'm gonna background. I come from the perspective that salespeople are the engine of revenue in an organization, period. So if revenue is important to an organization, sales is one of the last places to make a cut. So, if your CEO is coming to you and really leaning on you as the VP of sales to cut half your team, which I'm seeing a lot of right now, with all, obviously all of our customers are sales teams. And so like, I'm here. We've about 20% of the teams that use Badger have just stopped. They're not, and every one of them says, oh, we're going to want to turn it on again in a few months once the business gets back together. But like, if you're selling beer to bars, there's just nothing to do right now, right? You can't sell beer to bars because the bars are closed. Yeah. So, they're stopping and they're laying the whole team off. And I think I would really push back on that because, revenue is important to this organization. We don't want to lose all our good salespeople because it's just sales is one of the last places you should make a cut. So that being said, if you have to make cuts and if there are weak links in your team, and that's obviously the place that you look first, if you have to cut costs, low performers that you probably eventually would have ended up letting go of anyway, newer reps that haven't scaled up all the way, and maybe reps that are early and not scaling the way you'd like them to. But I really would do this carefully from the bottom up. When you're thinking about where the weak links are in the team, I guess one thing to keep in mind is that the world has changed and it's not a candidate's market anymore. It's a buyer's market, meaning as an employer, it's a buyer's market, meaning that we're coming off an economy of very low unemployment where it was impossible basically to hire great sales talent, right? All the Everolds out there are already hired.
So are the Steve Bensons.
Hopefully. But now, now it's a different world, right? There's high unemployment where there's lots of great reps out there who would love to work at your company. So, I would be very careful to push back when the CEO comes to your door saying, let's cut all the heads because revenue is going to be important in 3 months, and business is going to come back here. So push back pretty hard on that, but at the same time, it is not a terrible time to if you do have to cut those heads, if the gun is put to your head and you're told that you got to get rid of it, then know that it is a buyer's market and you will be able to start interviewing aggressively to get great people on your team when you do get the go ahead to scale the team back up again, because there are great reps out there. I know a ton of great reps out there that are no longer employed.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of that pop up on LinkedIn too, where their titles are changed to looking for opportunities or something like that. And I've actually been in communication with several reps through my marketing team and efforts, and a lot of our potential prospects who are general managers and VPs of some of these dealerships are responding that they're no longer there, or they've been laid off, or they're whatever the case may be. So that's certainly happening. So if we take this just a little bit deeper, and this is probably the final question because I can't believe we're an hour already on the show, but this has been a very in-depth show.
I'm a talker. I'm sorry.
No, but it's good talk. What are you talking about? This is amazing. I'm learning here as we go. I've made tons of notes here, Stephen. So,
we'll have to go back and listen to what we said.
Yeah. So. So last question is, so if you're asked to make deeper cuts and you want to push for further for the company to make bigger changes, what if the cuts you have, to go are deeper? What if the CEO comes to you and says, well, instead of doing 15%, you need to cut 20% or another 20%? How would you handle that?
Okay. Yeah, no, this is a great point. If you need to cut deeper, and you need to get the cost of your team down more, and you're down to people that you really, really don't want to cut, and they're great people on your team. I mean, I guess you have two choices. One, you fire some good people that you really don't want to let go of, or two, which I think is the better choice, you lower everyone's salary across the board. And there's pros and cons to each of these. They're both bad options. But let's think about the first option, right?
Mm-hmm.
So firing people that you really don't want to, and I don't love this option because there's so much uncertainty around when things are going to come back right now. If you're in an industry that, isn't going to be able to pay people, say you're selling airplane engines, right? Like, you've got to furlough a bunch of people. But if you sell beer to bars and restaurants, you might feel in a real bad place right now, but things could turn the corner pretty quickly, right? So, I'd much rather go with option two, even if things are seeming really bad right now. If you're, airplane engines aren't going to bounce back soon, right? There's a lot of extra planes around, but the
yeah,
beer,
you can buy one for cheap now, Steven.
I know, right? A buddy of mine's looking at that right now. But the classic business school wisdom here, with layoffs is, if you're going to do layoffs, do it all at once, right? Like, that's by the book, because doing several rounds of layoffs destroys morale. Keeps people from being focused if they're always looking over their shoulder because the axe is coming their way, right? So, and they lots of rounds, people start thinking, I'm next, so I've got to start looking for other employment options, and they spend their time doing that instead of, they don't stop being performant. So
yeah,
that's classic wisdom. I think that you might want to question that classic wisdom in these times, and specifically with a sales team, for a few reasons. First, the COVID economic crisis is different because, there aren't other jobs for people to look around for necessarily right now. It's, across the whole economy, things are in trouble. Also, I mean, Zoom, I'm sure Zoom meetings is hiring a lot of reps, but not that many reps.
Yeah.
They're not going to soak them all up here. So there's got to be 4 million reps looking for a job right now, right? So, also, sales teams are a little different than regular teams in that they're used to working under pressure and under the pressure of losing their job, even if they don't perform. And they're comfortable having that performance be highly measurable. That's just a part of sales. So you can get away with multiple cuts here in a way that you wouldn't be able to pull off with, say, an engineering team, especially in a good economy. But with a time of crisis like this, things could go back to normal, relative normal, in a month. It could be 6 months. It could be a year. But
yeah,
laying off your lowest performer on the team as you absolutely need to in order to keep things afloat is better than making one big cut and pretending that that this is going to be shorter long term, because in uncertain times you don't want to cut deeper than you had to. And remember, sales is actually a revenue source.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, if you go with option two and you lower everyone's pay but not actually fire them, for a sales team, I would focus on lowering the base, by the way. I wouldn't lower the bonus, because if you lower the bonus, you take away the incentive to sell. But, and frankly, your best reps don't care that much about their base anyway. It's because they're making all their money on the commission. So you piss off your worst reps when you take away the base. Whereas if you take away the bonus, you piss off your best reps. So better to piss off the worst ones than the best ones if you have to cut things. If you can also look to, like, move to a 4-day work week, but lower everyone's base pay by like 20 to 40%. And that may feel relatively fair. And everyone still keeps their health insurance, and they get a bunch of 3-day weekends all summer, which isn't the worst thing in the world anyway, and until the economy heats back up. So, they don't.
A lot of people might like that option. That's a option 3. That sounds like the best one so far.
Possibly. Yeah.
To a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's if the CEO walks into your office and, puts the axe in your desk and says, "Hey, go swing this around," say, maybe push back and say, "Hey, what if we did it like this? What if I cut everyone's base 40%, but they don't come in on, they don't come into work either Fridays or Mondays, and, team morale stays high because everyone keeps a job. They know we're looking out. Everybody knows we're looking out for them, but you keep the bonus on keep the incentive in place to make, to really bring in new revenue." So
absolutely. No, that's important, because high performers definitely going to want the bonus and structure in place. I mean, we've had something like this, and actually many companies I know of had put in some sort of guarantee, lower base or some guarantee for their sales teams, and made adjustments to bonuses. Some did it, some were more aggressive than others. Some were more conservative, and some were very generous. And to just say, take away the fair, don't worry, let's just focus on selling, let's just focus on producing. And but I've seen it both ways, where the bonus was actually reduced. I've actually seen that example, and that's not a good example.
Yeah, that's the way I would not go.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually seen that.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I think that's, sales managers, the vast majority of them have never managed a sales team through a downturn of this nature. I mean, well, no one's ever dealt with a downturn of this specific nature.
Correct.
But I think, that's one of the reasons I come on podcasts and stuff, because I think that, it's helpful for people to hear, that have never had to deal with this sort of thing, to hear some ideas of how to think through it. Right.
No, Stephen, this has been pretty good stuff. I'm on my second page of notes. And so when you get on my show, I gotta write like I'm in school again, because it's so good. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of stuff. It's very in depth, and that's why I appreciate it, because this helps to elevate me as a person, not as an entrepreneur, as someone that's in sales, sales vocabulary, sales strategies, sales method, like everything. So I spoke to like 3-4 people about you coming on, and I know they're very interested in listening to this episode and or future ones, because of what you bring to the show, and ton of value. So, and you're a guy that's doing it. Okay. You're a guy that, sold a bunch for Google, and anybody that was a number 1 sales rep for Google, hey, can come on this show anytime. So yeah, it's somebody that we have to listen to, and somebody that started up, their own, major startup company in San Francisco, nice part of the world, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I haven't been to San Francisco. I've been out there, but I've not been to that city.
Well, San Francisco is one of the most beautiful cities in the country. It's I don't see a lot of it these days because I'm trapped in my apartment here. But
yeah, no, I definitely know a ton of people who come out to San Fran. Actually, the gentleman in the office next to me, he goes to San Fran for vacation, so I know it's beautiful. Well, so Stephen, I keep saying Stephen. Is it Steve or Stephen?
Either works, honestly. I go by both. My friends call me Steve, so you can call me Steve.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. That's a privilege. I appreciate that. Any last words before we head off to dinner time here or bed? Depends on where we are in the world.
No, I mean, it's been a real honor to be on the show. If people want to get a hold of me, they should. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. If you're in field sales and you're interested in what Badger does, badgermapping.com is a great place to learn about what we do for field sales teams. My podcast is Outside Sales Talk. If it's focused on just outside salespeople, the ones that go and meet customers face to face. So those are the best ways.
Tell us briefly, quickly about the Sales Hall of Fame that you started.
Yeah, this is really fun. So it annoyed me that there was no. I saw like posts from someone that they were admitted to the Marketing Hall of Fame, and I was like, Marketing Hall of Fame? Why is there no Sales Hall of Fame? This doesn't make any sense. And so I looked into it, and I was like, there's no Sales Hall of Fame, and that annoyed me. And so
you just started one.
Yeah, well, I get to cheat in life a lot, right? It's just like it's easy for me to start a podcast and run that because I have a marketing team, and this is the same thing, right? It's cheating. It's I didn't start the Sales Hall of Fame. There are people on the marketing team that actually did it. I just steal the credit unfairly, but they've done the legwork and they've figured it out.
But the idea started with you.
Yeah, I'm an ideas guy.
See,
no, but it's really cool now. I mean, a lot of the same people. I knew a lot of these like sales thought leaders already just from networking and that sort of thing, or maybe they were on my podcast, whatever. But then I reached back out to them and said, hey, I'm starting the Sales Hall of Fame, and I'd like to nominate you for it. And so then they basically. I have them do a video, like a 1-minute video with like a great sales tip, their favorite sales tip. And I put that video up, and then I have their podcast or some other like kind of full length hour-long discussion of whatever their area of expertise is. And so I'm trying to make it be a really cool resource of here are the great sales thought leaders and here are kind of their sales thoughts. So like Joanne Black is in there, for example, right? Like, cause she wrote the 3 books on how to get referrals, and referrals are really important. And, and so, there's a the podcast on that she did with me that basically just talks about all the secrets of getting referrals, and then her 1-minute video on referrals. And then there's like a little, then there's, other links to other stuff by her, like, and that sort of thing. So I'm really trying to just create a cool resource and for salespeople, and at the same time recognize sales thought leaders.
I think it's great, and congratulations on that. And I'm definitely, I have been putting together a really what I think is going to be unique sales conference event, annual, semi-annual event, whenever we can gather again. And I've certainly thought about you as a guest speaker or a guest or a panelist.
Yeah.
Because
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, outside the box in terms of how to really offer the best solutions and the best ideas to salespeople that actually want to improve their skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
To improve themselves within, because if they improve themselves collectively, if a sales team has 10 sales reps, 20 sales reps, and just imagine if each of them improve their sales skills by 10, 15%, collectively, what that does to an organization.
Like, so much.
Like
yeah. Sales unlocks value for organizations, and really, as long as the product that you're selling is good. But in the internet age, it's hard to sell snake oil these days because people figure it out. But anyone that knows how to use the Google, right? But I think often a salesperson is coming to the table, sitting down with someone and showing them value that is worth more to them than the cost that they would have to pay for that value, whether it's an individual or a business, right? Like, so a lot of times you're going to this and they analyze it and they're like, well, this costs $100,000, but I'm going to make $500,000 if I do it. So I want to do that. Obviously, when businesses approach that, that's how they think about this stuff. Right. And, but if there was no salesperson, that business never realized this new way they could make $500,000, right? And it only cost them 100, which is so. It's just that value was never created to the world. But if the salesperson was able to show it to the business, they were able to make the extra 400 grand in profit. They can then take that, hire more people, grow their business, do other cool things. Salespeople, I think, really are pie expanders for the world.
I love it. Salespeople are pie expanders for the word, folks, for the world. I love it. So, folks, we always enjoy hearing from you. And so if you have suggestions, feedback, and today we have tons of requests to come on the show. Like I've been getting emails like crazy today of people and guests, professionals, thought leaders wanting to come on the show. So if you have any suggestions or feedback on any of our episodes, go ahead and contact us at insider@thereidmethod.com. And I invite you to subscribe and to download on wherever your favorite podcast app is, iTunes, SoundCloud. We're now on Spotify as well. And so is Steven's show, Outside Sales Talk, is on Spotify. And everywhere, wherever else you listen to podcasts, there's like so many places now, Steven.
Yeah, I know that I think that the team uses a piece of software that automatically we upload it to one place and it pushes them out to all of them. So
yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I've been using SoundCloud and it goes to a lot of places, but so far so good. We'll see if we can scale that up and a little bit. But I appreciate everybody listening and tuning in tonight to episode 69 off the Reid Method Insider Podcast. This one has gone for about an hour and 15 minutes already, which is great. So on the audio side, we'll probably split this up when we edit it into episode 69 and 70, which will be even more good stuff for you to listen to from Steve. And stay tuned as well, because coming up in about another week, I think Steve and I are going to do another episode. And that episode, I think we're going to be talking about, let's see if we can look it up here. Okay, action sales leaders need to take in a recession, right? And I know that this episode has been very in depth. There's been a ton of nuggets, tons of ideas, shared by Steve here tonight. And I mean, folks, this is a guy that was the #1 sales rep for Google worldwide. So, and he started his own software company, mapping company, Badger Maps. So he knows a thing or two about sales and very in-depth knowledge. So I do invite you to stay tuned and listen to these episodes. Give us your feedback. Send us your questions maybe for the next episode, which is, I think we're going to do it July 6th. But we'll confirm that. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We enjoy having you, and I certainly learned a lot tonight and loved having Steve on. And until next time, as always, be intentional and be safe. And thank you so much for watching, folks. Good night.
Good night.